The first spark, the peace chamber on Zari Prime, was silent. 20 alien leaders sat in a perfect circle. The air smelled of dust and old power. It was a sacred day. The chamber held a ritual once every 5 cycles. No sound was allowed. Not even breathing too loud. Breaking the silence meant exile. Or worse. Then came the sound of boots. Slow. Heavy. Bold. Every head turned. A human walked into the room. He wore no armor. No translator unit. Just dark travel clothes and a tired look on his face. Some of the aliens gasped. Humans were not even invited. They were known as reckless, wild, and stubborn. Many feared them. Others just laughed at them. But this one, he didn't care. He walked to the center of the circle. The guards did not move. They waited for the signal to strike. None came. The council leader, a tall creature made of blue fire, raised one glowing hand. "Who dares speak in this place?" The voice echoed inside every mind. The human looked around, then smiled. "I do." Gasps filled the room. Minds buzzed with panic. "This is sacred ground," the fire being warned. "So?" the human said, still smiling. "Your laws mean nothing to me." The fire being flared. "You disrespect the Council of Peace." The human stepped forward. "There is no peace, only control." "You will be punished," the fire being said, his voice like thunder. The human raised his hand. "Go ahead. But before that, listen." A pause. "You have rules for everything. Who can speak? Who can breathe? Who can live?" The human said, "But rules don't stop pain, they just hide it." The air in the room turned cold. Even the walls seemed to shiver. "My name is Jake," he said, "and I'm here to break your chains." A small alien child, watching from a hidden window, blinked. She had never seen anyone speak like that to the council. Not even warlords dared. One of the stone-faced council guards whispered, "Is he mad?" "No," said another. "He's human." The council leader rose from his seat, fire blazing. "Leave, or be erased." Jake tilted his head. "Erase me. See what happens." The flames shook, unsure. This man didn't beg. He didn't bow. He didn't fear them. One of the metal-skinned council members whispered through a private link, "Should we stop him?" The fire being didn't answer. Jake turned to the watchers around the chamber. "How many of you follow the rules because you believe them?" he asked. "And how many of you follow them because you're afraid?" No one answered. "I'm not here for war," he said. "I'm here to show you something different." He pulled a small device from his pocket. It glowed blue and red. Then it projected an image, a planet burning, slaves running, guards shooting. "This is your peace," Jake said. "Enough," the fire being roared. The chamber shook, but Jake stood still. "Truth hurts," Jake said. Then calmly, he turned and walked away. No one stopped him. The silence remained, but now it was filled with fear. Outside the chamber, news drones floated overhead. The moment had been broadcast across 12 systems. People watched in shock. A human, just one, had walked into the most feared chamber in the galaxy and spoken like a king. Some laughed, some cried, but many felt something new. Hope, in a small rebel camp on the dark side of Moon A97, a Zarn girl with a broken arm whispered to her brother, "I want to meet that human one day." In a prison cell on the planet Corvex, a half-blind warrior looked up at the stars and said, "Finally, someone's doing it." And far away in the shadows of the universe, forces began to move. Because Jake had lit a spark that would not go out. Not this time. Not ever. Hunted by the council. The day after Jake broke the silence in the peace chamber, the galaxy changed. 12 star systems watched the footage again and again. Some called him a hero. Others called him a criminal. But the Council of Peace had only one name for him: Threat Level Omega. Within hours, a kill order was signed. Jake was now the most wanted human in the galaxy. 3 bounty ships chased his trail through the Elvorn sector. These hunters were not amateurs. They were trained killers from 3 different species, fast, brutal, and known for never failing. One had hunted a solar bear through a collapsing black hole. Another once strangled a lava beast with bare hands. The third had eaten her last target alive. They thought Jake would be easy. They were wrong. On a broken moon near the gas giant Rulos, the hunters landed. They had tracked a stolen signal, a human-made ship with heat scars and illegal warp engines. They found it parked near a rocky cave. The ship was cold, empty. They entered slowly, weapons ready. The lights flickered. The air smelled of oil and fire. No sign of the human. But then, they saw the writing on the wall, a simple line, burned into metal. "You're already too late." A beeping sound echoed behind them. They turned. A blast charge sat on the ground, ticking down from 4 seconds. They ran. The explosion tore the cave open, sending fire and metal into space. But Jake wasn't trying to kill them. He was sending a message. 10 systems away, a transmission broke into the Council's encrypted feed. Static at first. Then Jake's face appeared, calm, serious, eyes like cold steel. "I told you," he said. "You can't stop this." The Council leader slammed his hand on the table. "Find him. I want his bones." Jake moved fast. He jumped through backwater ports and silent trade stations. He traveled through old mining tunnels and hacked abandoned teleport gates. No one ever saw where he came from, only where he had just left, leaving fire and questions. Behind one night on a dead freighter drifting through System E9, he found something unexpected. A girl. She was young. Alien. Maybe 15 in her years. Thin. Scared. Locked in a cargo box like trash. When she saw Jake, she backed away. "Are you going to sell me too?" she asked in a soft voice. Jake knelt down. "No, I'm going to set you free." She didn't believe him. Not at first. But he gave her food, water, and a name. Elka. "They took my family," she whispered. "They'll pay for that," Jake replied. He fixed the freighters, broken engines, and gave Elka a place to rest. She watched him work with tools made from scrap, fingers burned and bleeding but never stopping. "Why are they chasing you?" she asked one night. He looked up. "Because I said no." But Jake's fire burned too bright. Soon, the Council sent something worse than bounty hunters. They sent the Silencers, elite enforcers in dark armor with no faces and no mercy. They didn't talk. They erased. One by one, they hunted Jake's allies. A trader who sold him fuel was found frozen in space. A mechanic who gave him parts vanished from her home. A child who said Jake's name at school was taken away and never seen again. Fear spread. People stopped helping him. But Jake didn't stop. He just got smarter. On planet Drasco, he hacked the entire defense grid and made it dance. Weapons firing into empty skies, ships spinning out of control. When the army arrived, they found only his message painted on the city wall. "You can't kill an idea." The more they hunted him, the more stories grew. A farmer claimed Jake had saved his village from pirates, with nothing but a mining drill. A slave girl said he gave her a gun and said, "You're free now. Act like it." A soldier swore. Jake walked through a laser field without getting hit once. Was it all true? No one knew. But the legend grew. On the 9th moon of Torvex, the Silencers cornered him in a broken tower. They dropped gas, sealed exits. They were sure it was over, but when they entered, all they found was a chair. On it sat a note. "Keep coming. I'm just getting started." Then the tower exploded, not to kill, but to blind them long enough for Jake to escape through an old garbage shaft. The Council held an emergency meeting. "This human is turning the weak into warriors." One council member growled. "We have to make an example," another hissed. The fire being slammed his hand on the table. "We will erase his name from time itself." But deep down, even they knew the truth. They weren't chasing a man anymore. They were chasing a storm, and the storm had just begun. The station he burned, the Zernak station, was built to last 1,000 years. It floated in orbit around a dying star, shielded by quantum armor and guarded by 72 patrol drones. But more than that, it was feared across the galaxy. Because Zernax wasn't just a station. It was a prison, a factory, a grave. The council called it a work rehabilitation center. Others knew the truth. It was a slave yard in space. Aliens from conquered worlds were brought here. If you rebelled, if you spoke against the council, if you were simply born in the wrong place, they sent you to Zernax. And you never came back. Until Jake. They didn't even notice him at first. The security team was watching a riot on another deck. A few cameras were down, but that wasn't unusual. Equipment failed often in deep orbit. By the time they realized, he was already inside. He moved through the lower corridors like a ghost. In one hand, a data spike. In the other, a melted piece of armor he'd ripped from a dead silencer. No one stopped him. He passed cell after cell. Beings of every shape and color stared at him through dirty force fields. Most looked away, thinking he was another enforcer. But one old insectoid raised his head and whispered, "You're him." Jake paused. "Who?" "The breaker of chains," the prisoner said. Jake nodded once, then raised his spike and slashed the power box. Cells opened. Alarms screamed. Within 5 minutes, the station went from controlled silence to chaos. Guards ran to contain the riot. Prisoners rushed out, grabbing tools and weapons. They didn't even know who had started it. Only that freedom had arrived, and they weren't going to let it slip away. Jake moved straight to the core room, the heart of Zernax, the power center, the mind of the beast. He knew it wouldn't be easy. A mecha unit stood in front of the main door, 3 meters tall, armored in neutronium, equipped with plasma drills and shock nets. It scanned him and announced, "Unauthorized entity. Surrender, or be neutralized." Jake just smirked. "Yeah, no." He pulled out a pulse grenade, handmade, unstable, and ticking. The robot lunged. He threw the grenade and dove sideways. The explosion turned the hallway blue. The blast tore off the mech's leg and fried its optic core. It collapsed, twitching. Jake crawled over its smoking shell and reached the control door, but it was locked with a level 9 council cipher. He pulled out a chip, one he'd taken from a corrupt officer 2 stations ago, and jammed it into the slot. Click. The door opened. Inside the core room, heat pulsed like a living heartbeat. The reactor glowed, held by gravity coils. 1,000 control panels blinked in warning. He had 5 minutes. He worked fast, fingers dancing over keys, bypassing fail-safes. Alarms increased. The station screamed. On the main screen, a council voice spoke. "You are committing a crime against the galaxy. Identify yourself." Jake looked up, blood on his cheek, grease on his arms. "My name is Jake. This is not a crime. This is a correction." Then he hit the final command. The station's lights died. The prisoners felt it first. The walls buzzing with energy suddenly went quiet. Then the doors stopped locking. Then the gravity shifted, and then the outer defenses went offline. The drones circling Zernax turned in confusion. And from deep space, a group of old mining ships began to move. They weren't warships, just junkers and rigs. But Jake had planned this. He'd sent signals weeks before. Now they arrived like sharks sensing blood. They docked. The freed prisoners rushed aboard. One of them, a tall, scarred woman with chains still hanging from her wrists, looked back at the burning station and whispered, "We are never going back." Jake stayed behind. He stood in front of the reactor, now melting. A voice crackled on his comm. Elka, the young alien girl he'd rescued earlier. "You need to go," she shouted. "Not yet," he said. "I have one last message to send." He connected his comm to the station's old broadcast system, and across 12 sectors the message rang. "This was your warning. Every chain you place I will break. Every prison you build I will burn. This galaxy belongs to the free now." Then he ran. He reached his stolen ship with only 20 seconds to spare. Behind him, Zernax cracked open like an egg. Flames poured into space. Alarms died. Metal screamed. The station that had stood for 1,000 years was gone. Across the galaxy, people watched in silence, some in fear, some in awe, and some in inspiration. Because one man, one human, had done what no army could. He had broken a symbol of control. And now, the Council's grip was weakening. But they hadn't given up. They were just getting angry. The alien who joined him. The Council called her Unit 7RE9. She had no family, no childhood, no name. Just a mission. Born on the war planet Varkesh, she was raised in the silence of pain and trained in the language of war. Her bones were reinforced with steel fibers. Her skin had patches of impact-resistant armor. She could snap a neck with 2 fingers. She was one of the Council's finest weapons, a living executioner, created for one purpose, to eliminate Jake. They gave her files, videos of Zernax burning, clips of Jake smiling as he walked through fire, holograms showing the Council's shame. Her instructors played the footage over and over. "See his face," they hissed. "This is your target." But she didn't need their hatred. She had her own reasons. Her sister had died during the Zernax riot. A guard crushed beneath a falling gate. And Jake had caused that. At least that's what they told her. Her dropship landed on the shadowed world of Kelros 8. A frozen, forgotten moon filled with caves and storm winds. Jake had been spotted near the old mines. She moved alone, quiet, focused. Her senses picked up warmth trails and oxygen shifts. She followed them deeper into the dark. No sound, no smell, only the hunt. Then, footsteps. She turned fast, blades out. But it was just a child. A small alien boy, dirty, shaking, holding a stick. "Where is the human?" she growled. The child didn't answer. But then he looked past her and smiled. A voice came from the rocks. "You really going to hurt a kid just to get to me?" She spun around. There he was, Jake, no armor, no weapon in hand. Just his eyes, sharp and steady. For a moment she froze. Something about him didn't match the files. He looked tired, but also alive in a way she couldn't explain. "You're the butcher of Zernax," she said coldly. "Funny," he replied. "They used to call me a farmer." She lunged. A flurry of strikes meant to end his life in under 10 seconds. He dodged one, blocked another. But she was faster. Her blade cut his arm. Blood spilled, but then she stopped. He didn't scream. He didn't fight back. He looked at her, not with hate, not with fear, just understanding. "Go on," he whispered. "If killing me fixes everything." Her hand trembled. Why wasn't he resisting? Why wasn't he trying to survive? "You want me to kill you?" she asked, angry. "I want you to choose," Jake said softly. "Not because they told you to, because you believe in it." Her mind spun. Her training screamed, "Finish it." But her hands lowered. Memories flashed. Her sister, laughing before the war. Her first mission. The lies they told her. The orders that felt wrong. And then she saw something else. The child behind her. Hiding but watching. And Jake. Bleeding. But calm. "They lied to me," she whispered. "They lied to all of us," Jake said. She stepped back, for the first time in her life. She chose. Her name was Tarina. Jake gave her a med patch and a place to sit by the fire. They didn't speak for hours. Then she asked the question that had haunted her for years. "Why do you fight alone?" He poked the fire, his face lit by the flames. "Because too many are too scared to try," he said. "What if you die?" she asked. "Then someone else takes my place." They stayed on Kelros 8 for 3 days. Trina. Watched Jake repair a broken water pump in the village. She saw how the children ran to him, how the elders offered food, not fear. He wasn't building an army. He was building something else. Trust, hope, resistance. On the fourth night, a drone found them. It fired. Tarina leapt into the air, slicing it in two before it could hit Jake. He looked at her, surprised. "I thought you were here to kill me." She shrugged. "Maybe I changed my mission." "Why?" She smiled faintly. "Because for the first time I believe in something." News spread. The council's weapon had joined the rebel human. Soldiers began to hesitate. Civilians began to whisper. If even a killer like her switched sides. Maybe he's right. In the halls of the Galactic Core, the fire being burned with rage. "They are, not just following him," he shouted. "They're becoming like him." And in the cold winds of Kelros 8, Jake and Tarina stood on a ridge watching the stars. "They'll come for us again," she said. "I know," he replied. "What then?" He looked into the sky, eyes full of fire. "Then we give them hell." The law he shattered, the Galactic Core, was the crown jewel of the Council's power. It floated in the safest region of space, guarded by a fleet of elite ships, surrounded by a ring of defense satellites and planet-sized weapons. And at its center stood the Pillar of Order, the Council's central chamber built from pure white stone mined from a dead star. For over 10,000 years, no outsider had ever set foot inside without permission, until Jake. They knew he was coming. He didn't sneak in. He didn't hide. He walked. His ship, stolen from a high-ranking council commander, entered the restricted zone without clearance. The defense network activated, missiles locked on, cannons charged. But Jake sent a single code, an old diplomatic key forgotten in council files. It worked. His ship passed through. By the time the guards realized it was too late, he was already walking through the grand gate. Inside, panic spread like wildfire. "Lock the core. Call the silencers. Deploy the internal units." But the guards froze when they saw him. Not because of fear, because of doubt. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't armed. He was calm, silent, determined, and beside him walked Tarina, the once deadly assassin turned ally. Her armor bore the scars of war, but her blade stayed sheathed. The people whispered, "The breaker has come." In the Pillar of Order, the council met in emergency session. 12 alien rulers sat high above, looking down on the chamber floor. Their faces were cold, full of rage. They were used to obedience, to silence. Instead, they got Jake. He stepped into the center, past the glowing lines of law etched into the stone. A voice thundered from above. "You were warned. You have broken our laws. Why have you come here?" He looked up. "To break one. More." Gasps. Movement. Weapons ready. "This is sacred ground. Your presence is an insult." "Good," Jake said. "Then you'll remember it." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a data crystal. A guard raised his weapon. Tarina stepped forward, hand on her blade. But Jake lifted the crystal high. A hologram exploded into the air. Dozens of images played at once. Footage from Zernax, from Kelros 8, from slave ships and burning villages. Audio of screaming prisoners. Testimony from survivors. The truth. "You call yourselves keepers of peace," Jake said, voice steady. "But this is what your peace looks like." The chamber shook with anger. A thunderous voice boomed. "Enough! You will answer for this disrespect." "I already have," Jake replied. He stepped forward again onto the center seal of the council, a circle no being had ever walked on without permission, an act punishable by instant death. Jake stood tall and said 3 words. "I reject you." Blades came out. Weapons were drawn. But Jake didn't flinch. Instead, something unexpected happened. A single council member, the elder from the Frost Worlds, whose people had suffered centuries of council silence, stood up and turned away. Then another, and another. Not all, but enough. They walked out, robes dragging behind them. Jake turned to the rest. You rule by fear, but fear dies when truth stands up. He dropped the crystal. It shattered on the floor, sending sparks through the air. You can kill me, he said, but you can't kill the fire I've lit. Security forces swarmed. Tarina fought like a storm. Her blade flashed in red arcs, cutting through the armored guards without killing them, just enough to delay, to escape. Jake didn't run, he walked. With every step he passed banners of law, walls of history, statues of ancient rulers, and on each he wrote one word with his blade: broken. Outside, the citizens of the Corps had gathered. They'd seen the footage, heard the broadcast. They saw Jake and Tarina step out of the pillar, and they did not cheer. They bowed. The council locked down the chamber for the first time in galactic history. Laws were rewritten overnight. Rewards were tripled. His name was declared illegal to speak. But still the message spread. In secret. In whispers. On broken satellites and pirate signals. The law is shattered. Jake didn't stop. He and Tarina vanished into the star lanes. But wherever they went, rebellion followed, not with armies, with people. Workers refusing orders, slaves standing tall, guards laying down weapons, and one phrase etched on every wall: he walked into the heart of power and didn't kneel. The fleet that failed. The council had been humiliated. First, Jake spoke inside the pillar of faux order. Then, 3 members walked out during his speech. Then, images of his defiance reached even the outer rim worlds. But the final insult? The people began calling him not by name, but by title: the human who cannot be stopped. The council could not allow that title to live. So they summoned Operation Silent Sun, a classified war plan reserved for threats worse than extinction. An armada of 300 ships, led by the dreadnought Judicator Prime, was dispatched. Their orders were simple: find the human, end the myth, leave nothing behind. Jake knew they were coming. He stood on a small mining planet called Noral 4, a forgotten world stripped of value years ago. Now it was dust, wind, and rusted machines. No armies, no allies, no escape. Just Jake, Tarina, and an old control tower surrounded by giant excavation claws and broken mining rigs. Tarina stared at the sky. "They're coming," she said. Jake looked at the scattered machines around them. "Good. You don't have enough firepower," she warned. He smiled. "I don't need firepower." When the fleet arrived, it was like a moving wall of stars. Battle cruisers, corvettes, drones, carriers, all positioned in perfect formation. From orbit, the Admiral's voice rang across the command channel. "Human, you have 30 seconds to surrender." Jake patched through. His reply was short: "No." The Admiral's eye twitched. "You think we fear you?" "No," Jake said. "You fear what I make others believe. This is your end." "Maybe," Jake said. "But not today." They fired. A wave of plasma rained down toward the planet. But Jake had prepared. Weeks before, he had snuck into an old mining AI core buried under the planet. He'd reprogrammed the ancient systems and connected them to the orbital beacon grid, the Onda. Entire planet, every machine, every cable, every tower, came alive. Huge mining claws shot up, blocking the blasts. Drills launched into the sky, smashing drones mid-air. Then from the ground, old railguns hidden in cargo silos rose and opened fire. The Admiral screamed. How did he know? Ships exploded. Drones spun out of control. Comms jammed. Within 2 minutes, 11 ships were down. On the surface, Jake ran between command hubs, rerouting power, boosting the AI logic, adjusting combat paths. He didn't shoot. He didn't pilot. He orchestrated. Unit 9, shift power from the West Ridge, he said. Target the carrier's belly and weak shields. System overheating, the AI warned. Let it burn, he snapped. Tarina watched, stunned. You're not fighting them, she said. No, he replied, sweat dripping down his face. I'm outthinking them. The Admiral panicked. Focus. Fire. Burn the surface flat. More plasma rained down, but it only hit holograms. Jake had used signal relays to make decoys. The real command was underground, buried in ancient mining shafts. The fleet wasted time, energy, and lives, chasing shadows. Then Jake activated the final piece, a forgotten planetary magnetopulse, originally built to move metal from the crust. He reversed it, and the entire planet pushed upward. A wave of electromagnetic force shot into space, knocking out targeting systems and frying nearby drone relays. 12 more ships went dark. From the Dreadnought Bridge, the Admiral watched his fleet fall apart. "Retreat," he finally said, voice shaking. But Jake was already in control. He hacked the Dreadnought's navigation system, and before they could escape, he disabled the jump drive. A warning flashed on every ship screen. "You tried to erase me. Now you remember." Jake didn't destroy the fleet. He let them flee, broken, scattered, and humiliated, as the survivors limped away. They carried back one terrifying truth. The human had no army. He had no planet. He had no throne. But he was winning. On the council world, the fire being crushed his throne armrest. "He's not a soldier," one minister said. "He's a storm," another whispered. "What do we do?" asked a third. The fire being's eyes burned. "We silence every world that dares speak his name." But it was too late. Even children on slave moons whispered stories of the fleet that failed. And across the galaxy, the words spread like wildfire. If 300 ships can't stop one human, maybe he's not the problem. Maybe we are. The rebel galaxy. The galaxy was changing. Slowly at first, whispers in the dark. Then faster, louder. Entire sectors once ruled by fear had begun to question the laws, not because the council had weakened, but because one man showed them what strength really looked like. He didn't have fleets, he didn't wear a crown. He wasn't chosen by prophecy. He was just human. And that was enough. After the fall of the fleet on Norel 4, Jake vanished. The council hunted the ruins of that planet but found only melted steel, broken drones, and one message carved into the rock: "You can't kill the wind." For weeks he was silent. No sightings, no signals. But then he reappeared, not in the shadows, but on the council's own broadcast frequency. The fire being himself was mid-speech, addressing the galaxy, declaring a new age of silence and law, and then the screen glitched. His voice stopped, and Jake's face appeared, blood on his temple, dust on his jacket, a fire burning behind him. "They tried to erase me," he said. "Now I erase their fear." Across the stars, something awoke. A signal went out, not from a station, but from Jake's personal beacon. One linked to a code buried in rebel networks, forgotten archives, and ancient resistance channels. When it activated, 100 worlds lit up. Outlaws, scientists, soldiers, farmers. They had all watched, waited, wondered. And now, they moved. Ships launched from asteroid belts, weapon caches were unlocked. Flags, long hidden, were raised once more. Not for Jake. For freedom. On the moon of Hadra 9, once a slave market, rebels stormed the gates and hung a single banner. He broke their rules. Now we break their chains. On Cyrix, a military commander shut down the council command center and said only, "If Jake's alive, I'm done following monsters." On the floating libraries of Venzar, knowledge once banned was made public in honor of the one who defied silence. The council responded with terror. They burned villages where Jake's name was spoken. They bombed spaceports suspected of rebellion. They labeled planets tainted if they refused to pledge loyalty. But the more they struck, the more stars joined the cause. Even council soldiers began leaving their posts. Some said, "We can't fight a ghost." Others said, "We don't want to." Meanwhile, in the shadows of a shattered system, Jake met with leaders from every corner of the galaxy. He didn't give orders. He listened. Tarina stood beside him, watching as former enemies shared food and fire under one sky. "They don't need me to lead," Jake said. "They just need me to stand." "Then stand tall," Tarina whispered, "because they're building something around you." Soon, it had a name, not an empire, not a rebellion. A free galaxy, no thrones, no chains. No chosen race, just worlds choosing their own path, under a loose banner of unity, sparked by a single defiant voice. The council panicked. They gathered what was left of their armies. They called in old debts, secret weapons, ancient horrors, buried beneath laws, and they launched one final offensive, Operation Black Silence. A plan not to kill Jake, but to kill hope. The plan failed, not because their ships were weak, not because their spies were caught, but because the people no longer obeyed. Refueling crews refused to load the missiles. Naval captains opened their comms and surrendered mid-flight. Entire planets shut off their beacon links to Council command. "You're too late," Jake's message echoed in the skies. "We've already won." And then came the final blow. A Council high tower, the place where the original laws were written, exploded from within. Not from a bomb, but from the people inside. Judges, lawmakers, servants, guards. They all walked out, left their robes behind, and burned the books of silence. Above the flames, they raised a banner with Jake's symbol. A simple hand, open, unarmed, unchained. Years later, children would ask, "How did the war end?" And the elders would say there was no last battle, only a final truth. Tarina asked him once as they watched 1,000 ships gather in peace above a reborn world. Was it worth it? Jake looked at the stars, all still out of reach, yet somehow closer now. "I didn't come to win," he said softly. "I came so others could start." And somewhere in the deepest part of space, a cold breeze still whispers his legacy. He broke every rule in the galaxy, and they still couldn't stop him.